Hey, hi everybody. So we're back. We're back for part two. The Departed. The part two of the Vampire of Sacramento. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We've already been drinking a little bit, but we ain't drunk.
No, not at all.
No,
Actually, we're
I'm
sober
decent.
from the first in comparison to the first part.
Yeah, the first part. We're also recording this a little bit earlier in the week, so I feel like it'd be a little inappropriate to drink any more than I'm drinking right now. But what am I saying? Because I work from home. But also, we were originally going to go to Money Gone until there was a fucking blizzard.
That stopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually a beautiful night right now, so I'm not mad at it.
No.
It
happened just the way it was supposed to.
Exactly. Worse things have happened. Let's just put it that way. What? Oh, yes. So we're back. We're talking about the Vampire of Sacramento. Did you like that last episode? How did you listen to it yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, good. Because you probably wanted to listen to them both.
I do listen to them both together. This one's dropping too soon.
Yeah, I say just wait.
Because I'm assuming this is going to drop before we go.
This is dropping Thursday.
So it'll be dropped like Thursday morning.
6 p.m. Thursday.
So I'll probably listen to it Friday.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say listen to both.
Back to
That's
back.
with an F. So, quick recap. Richard Chase is a freak. No, I'm just he's
That's
a creeper.
accurate.
My dog's doing a lot.
She's just a baby.
I kind of feel like she's like a T-Rex, like her visual acuity is based on movement. And if we stop being still and stop paying attention to her, she'll stop.
Oh, definitely. Just ignore her.
But she's also a Gemini, so she probably won't. She's also incredibly vocal. Like, she's vocal as fuck.
Look how she's like. Oh, you missed it. She was like.
Yeah, she ain't gonna leave us alone. Dustin has to pick her up to caress her because she will not leave us alone otherwise. She's vocal. She's way more vocal than Riley, because I'm gonna tell you, Luna wakes me up in the morning and she just be like, just look at the way she's looking at me. She like, bitch, are you talking about me? Like I'm not here? Luna, we are busy. She's so motherfucking bad, y'all. She's so bad.
But she's so cute.
She cute as fuck. See, that's that pretty privilege shit that they be talking about. Motherfuckers just be getting away with shit. Because if she was an ugly dog,
I'd be like, get your dog.
I would have returned her already. Be like, get this ugly badass dog. No, I would have never bought her. All right, so yeah, I would say I was gonna do a recap, but we ain't got time for all of that. What we gonna do is you gonna listen to the first episode when you have the time, and I'm gonna continue with the second. All right, so let's do this. Sip. What we were drinking last episode was I was about to say the Vesper, and that's not what it was. We were drinking the Bee's Knees. Me and Dustin actually are not drinking that. We're drinking gin and tonics at the current moment because that Bee's Knees kind of gave me a little bit of a headache the following morning, just a slight. And I think it's because I'm not used to that much sugar.
All that, I was like the sugar in it, the honey.
Yeah, that was a lot. I didn't need all of that. I just don't. We just talked about this. I just don't need all those extra ingredients anymore. And it also makes it harder to do a podcast where you curate cocktails when you have limited the number of ingredients that you.
Well, I mean, it's a cocktail, but it's not a curated fun.
No, and it's like no disrespect to y'all. Like what I may do is curate the cocktail and just not drink it.
Just drink the liquor that goes in the cocktail.
Yeah, or just I promote you all drinking it. I'm just like my diet, my girlish figure, on top of like how my blood pressure is set up. Like your girl 2 to 3 ingredients max.
Ice, liquor.
I have all the ingredients, the Angostura bitters, the orange bitters, or the aromatic bitters, the liqueurs. I got all that shit, but your girl can't really metabolize that the way she used to in her youth. You would think I was 60. And we keeping it a buck. I'm not 60.
Not close.
All right, let's do this. Now, where we left off was your boy Richard. He was just arrested, and he was talking to the popo, and the popo had basically chased his ass down, arrested him, and found the wallet of Daniel Meredith, who was one of the victims, and a picture of Jason and Evelyn, who was two of the victims, on his person. And the thing that he said as they were like planning on searching his apartment, he was like, my apartment is a lot cleaner, isn't it? And I didn't do anything in my apartment except kill a few dogs.
Great.
Which is like, oh, that's not a big deal.
I'm more upset about the
Okay.
dogs than the people. No, I'm
What?
joking.
Well, welcome
maybe.
to the rest of the world, because that's how everybody else feel about it. Now, when they questioned him back at the station, quote, had he killed a woman on Tioga Way behind Town and Country Village? The suspect mumbled something unintelligible and then ended it with an audible no. The other one I want to know about was on Marywood yesterday. He said, this is what one of the cops was saying. He said, I want to know if you killed a woman over there, a man over there, a 6-year-old boy over there, and if you did something to a 2-year-old boy. I need to know, Richard. And then Richard replied, okay. Did you kill anybody? No, I never killed anybody. Look, we can talk this out, but we have to know if you did it, Richard. My apartment is a lot cleaner, huh? Like, keep your eyes on the prize. Why you keep talking about that? Because your apartment's not clean. Nowhere near. Then the cop says, you ran away from us. We've been telling you we were the sheriff's department and we wanted to talk to you, but you ran away from us. Why? So
my general response. No.
Right. So Chase told the deputies, he was like, I was half asleep at the time and you surprised me. And the deputy said that, he was like, yo, like, you woke up with a loaded pistol? Like, is that how you move? If it doesn't sound like you were half asleep. He was like, I just woke up. He said, if you were asleep, why would you load a bunch of bloody rags in a box and then come running out with it? He said, you don't put a loaded gun in a holster when you're half asleep. And then Chase was like, no. And then he said, but I got into a little trouble lately. He was like, I know you got into trouble. This is the cop. And then he goes, let me explain something. We're not going to try to lie to you and tell you it's going to be better. So don't lie to us either. Okay? Everything works out better if everyone tells the truth, right? So Chase's his answer was kind of a grunt. And he was like, don't you think I know what's in the box? And then Chase was like, I don't know. And then he was like, I just had some garbage and some papers and stuff.
Yeah.
So they started asking him other questions, just like about certain times, certain days. And of course, Chase just acted fucking confused. He was like, what do you mean? And so
sounds like the right response.
He had gone to a fast food restaurant once and just lingered there. And another time he wasn't really sure where he was. Both days on which the murders had occurred, he was just confused. He denied visiting the Town and Country Village on the day of the Nancy Holden encounter, which in episode 1, Nancy Holden was the one that he chased. And she got in her car and drove off.
That was one in the store.
Yeah. What did she buy? Is that her toy?
Her toy.
Okay. And so he denied that. He also didn't remember being on Tioga Way that day. He did answer, in an answer to a question about the blood on his shirt, at first he said that he didn't know how it had gotten there. And then he changed his mind. He said, it came from the dogs.
That makes sense. That's,
And he said, you killed dogs, didn't you? He nodded. And so his admission was kind of like troubled because they were like, you seem upset by this. Because when they would talk about the dogs, he kind of seemed frustrated. He said, we can take that gun of yours and shoot some bullets through it. And that we can find out, too, if they are the same bullets from the murders. He said, and then that's when Chase was like, I thought it was about the damn dogs. And then the cop was like, no, we're not talking about the dogs. We're talking about people, about kids, too. And he's like, now I want to tell you something else. Remember when I found the gloves in your pocket? Because of course he had those gloves on him, those used as gloves, and they still had blood on them. The cop was like, gloves leave prints too. Did you know that? We have glove prints from the crime scene, so we'll be able to compare your gloves with the prints left where the people were killed. He said, you probably didn't know we could do that. He was like, we got your keys too. And then he said, let me ask you, Richard, are these your keys? Chase grunted, which was basically yes. And he says, we'll check these keys and we'll find out if these are your keys or if the keys belong to somebody that got killed. Like, does one of them fit a red Ford station wagon that belonged to one of the people that got killed? We are going to find all this out because we think you killed all those people, Richard. Now, it can be hard and we'll take time to do all this stuff. And we're going to keep you here while we do it. Or you can make it easier and go ahead and just tell us everything. We want you to tell us about it. Make it easy on yourself. I think you'll feel better after it's all over. Richard was not talking. He said, I haven't done anything, honest. He was talking. He wanted to only talk about the dogs. He said, I brought in a couple of dogs. That's all. In your apartment? Yes. And one got killed. Now, he admitted to shooting the dog, then to killing several dogs. To them, a confession is a fucking confession. So
got to keep it going.
Yeah. So they were just hoping that he was in the mood to tell them some other shit. The detectives quickly guided the subject away from the dogs because they were like, we're not talking about the fucking dogs. We're talking about the humans. And he was like, why did you kill that little boy? I didn't kill any little boy. If you didn't, where is he then? I didn't see any little boy. So then the cop explained slowly, as if he was speaking to someone who just didn't know what the fuck he was talking about what happened on Marywood the day a lady and her 6-year-old son, and by the way, you were carrying their pictures. They were murdered along with a man named Daniel Meredith whose wallet you had. And then Richard, he said this. He said, Richard, we know you did it. He's like, come on.
Like,
he said, I just want to know why and what made you to do it. And then Richard was like, I just don't know. I don't understand. I just don't. How could it be me? And then he goes, you don't understand. How could it be you? No, I've done nothing like that. He said, are you a liar, Richard? He said, no. I've always told the truth. And then the cop was like, always? And then Richard was like, almost always. So they searched his apartment. There was fucking blood everywhere. Quote.
So what did it look like before it was cleaner?
Period. A strong putrid stench was the first thing noticed by anyone stepping inside. Almost everything in the apartment was blood stained. The bedroom floor and bed, in the bathroom, the tubs, the walls, the floor, the front room, and the kitchen floors. A sleeping bag covered the surface of a couch in the front room. A half loaf of French bread was lying on the couch, which was stained with blood. A round hole suspiciously resembling a bullet hole had pierced the ceiling above the bed. 2 pictures showing different views of the human anatomy were on the wall, and under them the rug was liberally stained with blood. An unwashed dinner plate. Sit down.
That's just her yelling at.
She doing a lot. Unwashed dinner plate was lying on the bed. It too was bloodstained, as was most of a pile of clothing that was also lying there. 3 .22 caliber bullets were found on the floor, plus 1 expended round. In the bathroom, more blood stains.
Okay, that's a lot of blood.
Were found on the door, the floor, the walls, and in the tub. A plastic drinking glass was discovered in the medicine cabinet. The glass was stained on the inside with blood. In the kitchen, a can with a label indicating it had once held some kind of nutrition product was taken from the freezer compartment of the refrigerator. Several small pieces of bone were found in various areas of the kitchen. On the countertop was an electric blender. The inside was stained and smelled bad. This bitch done blended something
together. He's making blood smoothies.
Now, they did find a bunch of medical books and magazines on different medical science and health topics. One notebook was found, quote, a loose leaf spiral notebook with handwritten notes, drawings, which was a gun, a swastika, and a bunch of obscene pictures.
He's a racist too?
Apparently. And translation of German. Why every time motherfuckers a creep, it's always associated with Nazis? They always go Nazi first.
I mean,
they literally hand me her. Sorry, my dog is being a absolute dickhead. It is as if she.
Like, I think the Nazis, you know, they did so many sociopathic type things. I mean, they did experiments on people.
There's something that he feels like he can relate to.
They just kill people to be killing them in real life.
True.
You know, they gas them. They, you know, it was. So, I mean, I guess it, like, I mean, it's. If you have that sick kind of mind where you enjoy torturing people or exploring the human anatomy in that kind of way. Like,
true, because there were sadistic ass doctors in Nazi Germany too.
I mean,
for sure. Now, on one page, Chase had signed his signature 12 times, adding, "My name is Richard Chase. I am a 1000 computer. I was sent here from the year 10,000.
Oh, dope. Okay, Terminator.
Except Terminator hadn't came out yet.
Oh, right.
So during the questioning, he had admitted to being admitted to a quote unquote rest home after being poisoned because he had eaten bad rabbit meat. When they asked him about his shoes, he was like, "Your shoes, do you see those? They're full of blood. Your shirt is full of blood. Your coat is full of blood. You're not innocent, Richard. You're guilty. You murdered 5 people." Chase coughed. "You brutalized them." "Yeah, well, it must have been somebody else because there's trouble in the neighborhood every day." He basically just said niggas die every day, B.
That is basically exactly what he just said.
That was like paid in full, 100%.
That was like, I don't know. It's almost the crack era.
Yeah.
Sure.
So he said, "What neighborhood? Where I live, people get killed all the time. Nobody's been killed there except for these people. There's only one Monday. Do you know what you did last Monday?" When Chase said he didn't, he was told, "You went over to a young lady's house who was 22 years old and you shot her in the head. Then you dragged her back to the bedroom and you stabbed her and then you gutted her. Yeah, you did, Richard. Oh yeah, you did, pal. And you better start telling us the truth." And then he goes, "I told you everything I did." He just maintained that I ain't do shit.
I ain't do nothing.
So they bring in these older homicide detectives to interrogate. Their names were Pat O'Neill and Tom Robinson. So they asked, "You killed that lady right there." He was pointing to Evelyn Maroth's butchered body. "You did it right there." And then Chase was like, "My God, I did not."
And it's crazy because he's shooting them and then stabbing.
Yeah, he's butchering them after he killed them. And then they say, sexual. 5 people are dead and you did it right here. You see it. 5 people are dead out there. You see it. You see that. You've been drinking that blood? Now, Chase was like, "No." Like, unconvincing as hell. He's like, "No."
Like a 2-year-old.
He's like, "No." And so the detective was like, "Does blood taste good?" And then Chase was like, "Oh, come on, man." Like, first of all, you got blood all over your shit. We already know that you consume it. They got, like, you're not trying to hide this. This is what you do. And now you're like, "Oh, like, come on, man. Like, get the fuck out." So then Biondi entered the room and they learned that Richard had an issue with personal space. Biondi decided he was going to sit right next to him.
Drive him crazy.
Now, he goes, "That's a handsome holster, Richard. Very nice. I guess you'd like for us to let you keep it, huh?" Because he had this like holster thing across his chest, kind of like a crossbody.
Yeah, like
but it was where he kept his gun. He said, "Maybe we can work something out." Richard, if you saw somebody walking down the street with blood all over them like that, what would you think? This is what another detective said. And then finally, because of course he's hesitating. He's not interested in answering any of these questions. They go, why don't you like women, Richard? Is it because of your mother? What does she do to you? Because, they're pressing his buttons.
Well, yeah, they're trying to see what's going to make him spaz.
Yeah. So then they asked about his sister. He was like, you don't like her either, do you? Suggesting that, he had a woman problem because obviously he brutally butchered the women. Are you eating much meat, Richard? He had this diet of so he said, of steak and quote, things from the store. Spoken like a true person that doesn't eat. That sounds like me.
From the store.
Be like, what you eat today, Brittany? Things from the store.
Stuff that comes from the store. Things that are edible.
things that people eat. Now, a lot of cats were coming up missing around the apartments, and the police believed that he had been eating them. Again, what about all the blood on him? He told him that he threw a dead dog in the trash the week prior. They were like, it's still red. That means it's still fresh.
It's still fresh blood.
That's not a week old. Tell me, why don't you like dogs? Chase was like, I do like dogs. Why do you kill them then? I like dogs, and I've never killed a dog in my life. Couldn't help it, could you? Something driving you to it. Tell me about it. Well, I guess I wanted a dog. I took it out and killed it up at Folsom Lake. Now, he did kind of relent at the subject of dogs, but he did also give this gory detail about how he used a machete on one.
Oh.
And he cut the animal up because he thought it was mean.
Okay.
So they talked to this bitch for 5 hours and they did not get a confession out of him. So they told him, you know what? You're going to jail anyway.
Right.
So they booked him. They took his fingernail samples and his hair samples, and he matched all of the evidence at the crime scene. Duh. Sense. And when they tried to get a blood sample, Chase freaked the fuck out and had to be physically restrained. Oh. So they, after a while, they got the sample, and he was finally appointed a public defender by the name of Ferris Salami. Now, who was fucking Richard? Richard was born on May 23rd, 1950 in Sacramento. In Sacramento, California. He was 4 years older than his sister. He apparently had a normal childhood, even though he did experience some of that 1950 style abuse from his father. Oh, that type of shit. And his parents fought constantly. His fucking parents were struggling. Now, I don't know his dad's name. Okay. His dad didn't pop up, which tells me his dad didn't want no parts of none of this shit. I mean, but he was like, fuck that. But his mother, Beatrice, she didn't seem to notice anything was off with him, even though he buried a cat in her flower boxes when he was 10.
The mom always doesn't know.
Yeah.
She knew.
That's when it starts. It's like that movie We Need to Talk About, Kevin. Have you ever seen that? Tilda Swinton, which, shout out to Tilda Swinton. Kira fucking loves Tilda Swinton. Kira worked with her on that new movie that's coming out with Michael Fassbender called The Killer. It's a new David Fincher project that's coming out. She just posted it on her Instagram. Okay. She worked on it, and she was dressing Tilda Swinton, and she was like, Tilda Swinton was the nicest person she had ever worked with in her fucking life. Not to mention that after the project was over, Tilda Swinton sent her flowers.
Oh.
And said whenever she comes to Chicago, she would love to work with her again.
That's dope.
Yeah. So, anyways.
Can she just go to LA and work with her?
Period. Like literally.
Can you just let me work with you on the next project?
You can just work with Tilda Swinton. Now, Tilda Swinton was in this movie called We Need to Talk About Kevin, where she has this son. And her son was fucking bonkers from birth. It was one of those things where she knew something was wrong. And her husband was kind of like, a kid is a kid, and maybe she's postpartum, that situation. And then her kid ends up being truly crazy. He ends up doing some fucked up shit at the end. So it's kind of like mothers be knowing.
Oh, they know.
I mean, it's like they have
they ignore it.
Yeah. And also women have just a true connection with they literally birthed you. You are them.
Yeah.
So the neighbor, the neighbor couldn't help but notice that like a lot of cats were coming up missing in the neighborhood after that. So so far what we do know is at least by the age of 10, this nigga was killing animals. Eventually, his parents separated in 1964. Richard and his sister Pamela, they would go to live with family in LA, but they would get back together for another 6 years before separating finally in 1972. And then in 1973, they just went ahead and got a divorce.
Okay.
They were like, fuck this. Which I'm like, I appreciate y'all pulling it. I mean, I feel like I've personally reading this, I felt like Richard Chase's family did the best they fucking could. Good. Under the circumstances, based on what was available to them, the resources and everything. And we'll get into that and like everything they did, like sending him to doctors and shit like that. But they really, the fact that they were not doing well and they had enough wherewithal to be like, you know what? Stay with family in LA. We need to figure some shit out.
Yeah.
You know, I do feel like you need to separate your kids from like a tumultuous environment like that so you don't fuck them up.
But I mean, that can also fuck them up. Because now, like, if the kid doesn't really understand, it's abandonment. Now they have abandonment issues, or why did mommy and daddy want me?
Yeah. But when you really think about it, though, they separated in 64, which means he was 14. His sister would have been 10, though.
I've seen grown-ups go through issues when their parents get divorced.
That's true. Which I always feel like get counseling because people, I mean, all things end. So sometimes people, I mean, would you prefer it if your father was miserable with your mother and cheating on her and beating her or some shit? Like, I'd rather you be gone.
Yeah. Everybody be happy.
Exactly. So they divorced in 1973. Now, when Richard was a teenager, he was super popular and he had a bunch of friends. Like, his friends at school said he was neat, he was well-mannered, he was well-groomed, but he dated these two girls that may have fucked him up. And I hate to say this, but not that the girls fucked him up, but the situations with the girls fucked him up. So he was dating both of these girls. He was going steady with both of them. Okay. And he tried to have sex with one of them, and he realized that he couldn't hold an erection.
Oh.
So he tried
at a young age? That
yes. Sucks. And so then he tried to have sex with another woman and nothing.
That's why he was stabbing them hoes. I mean, those people.
Oh, God, dude. I hate when dogs drop toys intentionally. So he tried to have sex with another woman. Nothing. Now, one time he got drunk at a party. And he started running down the street screaming something. And his friends were like, what the fuck? One of his friends chased him down the street. And then like he had this emotional rant. He was talking about how like he had admitted to his friend how he couldn't function sexually. And it was really fucking him up. I would also like to say like he could have just been like drunk. But I do know that sometimes people who have like an underlying mental illness, alcohol doesn't really help.
It's a depressant.
It is not good. So when he
happy, but
yeah, exactly. Because we don't have that issue, but like people who are bipolar or people who are seriously depressed, like alcohol just doesn't help them.
Doesn't help. So we also drink to have fun, not to escape life.
Yeah, I don't drink to escape life at all. And when things were my worst, that was when I drank the least.
Yeah, I don't drink when I'm sad.
Like,
it's not my go-to.
I like alcohol enough that I like to separate it from sadness. Yeah. Because I did, when my grandmother passed away, I was like drinking with my uncle. And I was like, no, I like alcohol more than this.
Yeah, I like
you know, like I enjoy cocktails. I don't, you know, you already know I'm not one of those people that do shots.
Yeah.
I did shots the other day and I was like, I did one shot and I was like, why do people do this? This is pure fucking alcohol. This is dumb. The only reason why anybody does shots is just to get fucked up. And I don't typically drink to get fucked up.
I guess you're right. I guess I haven't really sat and taken shots in a while. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Usually when I've taken shots, it's because we're partying. You're like, we're going to get fucked up tonight.
Yeah, exactly. You're in Mexico. You're doing shots.
Yeah.
Like, that's because you want to be drunk.
I mean, I used to play, we used to play shot glass checkers.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
And each like checker piece was like a shot glass.
Nah, fuck that.
And like, but we had to play in teams. Because like trying to take... What is it, like 20 pieces on a checkerboard or something like that?
Fuck that. I don't even know.
Like, it would be ridiculous. It would be fucked up, though.
Yeah.
Like,
You'd be
even on teams, you'd be fucked up.
The level of dead that I would be. Like, you would have to...
I wouldn't. I was young. I was like, you know...
Yeah, we don't eat enough of that shit. You would literally have to rush me to the hospital. I had one shot on this weekend, and I was like, ugh. And I sipped it. I didn't even shoot it.
Oh, okay.
I sipped it because I was like, this. I don't like to drink alcohol like
Well,
this.
you know what I've evolved to? I like doing bombs.
I don't even know what that is.
So it's like, it's more of a drink that you take like
Quickly.
It's like
Like if you had a cranberry vodka and you just glugged
like
it.
a bomb. So like a Jaeger bomb is like Jaeger mixed with like Red Bull. Most bombs have Red Bull in it.
Yeah.
So it's like liquor, Red Bull, and then something. A cherry bomb.
I used to
is
like Red Bull and vodkas.
It's like cherry bombs are like cherry vodka, splash of cherry juice, and Red Bull.
Okay.
And it's like usually like this much. So it's enough to where you can chug it.
Mm-hmm.
But you still probably get that same effect of drinking alcohol fast, but it's less.
I can kind of see that only because of the Red Bull effect. Because sometimes if I'm too drunk, I will get sleepy.
I like a Red Bull.
Yeah, I can see
you're not
that.
Supposed to really mix liquor and Red Bull because it fucks with your heart.
Of course.
My heart's healthy.
Well, I don't know because I haven't done a Red Bull anything in years. I haven't had Red Bull in years.
Me neither, actually. But
now,
anyway,
when he was 18. When he was 18, he went to a psychiatrist and he admitted that he had 3 attempts with 3 different women and nothing happened. He was apparently told,
maybe he was gay.
That's what I thought. He was apparently told that suppressed anger could cause impotence. And he began to shed like that nice guy image and would start to become more defiant and rebellious. He started to become super selfish. He was like really inconsiderate. And then he started to just like lie whenever it benefited him.
I mean, if you couldn't have sex, I'd be angry too.
I'd be pissed. I ain't even gonna lie.
I mean, yeah.
But I would also probably just figure out another way. And it could just, I don't necessarily obviously think he was gay. What I think he was a necrophiliac. I think he was just
clearly,
not.
I think that's where that's stabbing. Usually when,
yeah, for sure. I mean, and obviously he was attracted to blood, which we'll get into that too. But I think that what he was really struggling with was his own sexuality. He thought that he would just ordinarily be attracted to women, but his sexuality took a deviant.
He just couldn't have sex with
them.
them.
Exactly. So then he started to just lie whenever it benefited him. So he was like, he started smoking weed, which we know was illegal back then. Wow. He blamed his limp biscuit on other people. He just started blaming everybody else for his problems. He got hot with his dad because he wouldn't get him a lawyer for a weed charge he got when he was 16. And then Chase got caught stealing liquor. And when he finally graduated, he barely graduated and he started to look like shit. Like people were like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? Like he grew out his hair. He was kind of just looking more and more like a hippie. So his mother, she acted like she didn't notice the difference. And then when her friends would say shit, they were like, he don't look any different than any other motherfucker in 1970.
Well, like in hippies, like that was the hippie era. Like it might have been the end of it, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Ish. Mm-hmm. Well, right, because hippies were like into the 60s.
This was before 1970, right here. This
got it. Okay, so this is like the end, like the 60s era, the flower
yeah,
power.
for sure. I mean, this again post Charles Manson.
Yeah.
So by 1970, he moved out. He had 2 roommates, but he didn't really have a relationship with them, and they were both girls. The roommates thought he was an absolute fucking slob. He very rarely bathed. He didn't even wash his clothes. They were like, this motherfucker is repulsive. He didn't have a lot. So they assumed, like, since he didn't have a lot of company and he didn't care about his physical appearance, they was like, there's no way this bitch got any friends. So one time he boarded his bedroom door closed and he knocked a hole in the wall of his closet. He nailed the closet door shut from the inside. And this was because he thought people were sneaking up on him from the inside, which ding, ding, ding. That's probably when the LSD started.
Oh.
Because there is no real telltale sign when the LSD started. Now, there are 2 episodes from last season that kept bouncing around in my head. The first one was the life and times of Avery, Lloyd Avery from Boys in the Hood. And then the other one was Lori Dan, the one who shot up the kids' school, who was completely crazy. Lloyd Avery kind of lean more towards him because remember, he smoked Sherm, which is like weed and cigarettes laced with PCP.
I thought Sherm was
It's PCP
weed
and
mixed with,
embalming
what's the one
fluid.
Okay,
Yeah.
embalming fluid.
Now, not everybody dip though. Some people lace it with PCP, but not everybody dip it because you dip the joint in embalming fluid. Not everybody dip it. But because of that, I believe when I was researching that, I was like, I believe that is what really made him crazy because he was pretending like he was a gang member. And back then, gang members used to smoke sherm.
Yeah.
So in this, especially,
They still do on the West Coast.
they sure do. And they smoke wet in Florida too. Like they smoke wet in a lot of places. But then with this, what was interesting was like, this is also that hippie era, the psychedelic era.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. Psychedelic era, all of that shit. And I believe that that is when this motherfucker took that turn. And he was probably doing it, trying different shit to get hard, or he was trying different shit to just kind of release his mind.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't ejaculate, I mean,
He couldn't get hard.
I guess a lot of women would
let alone
understand,
ejaculate.
Like, right. So, like, I mean, I guess, we've talked about women not orgasming.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess, like, people are like, well, fuck it. Like, we don't orgasm all the time. But for a man, like, you get hard, you nut.
Yeah. The female equivalent would be like every time you encountered a man, you never got wet.
Oh, that sounds horrible. It's all rough.
And I mean, you wouldn't have sex. Because like most women know when their vagina isn't wet.
I mean, at least with that, you can like add lubricant.
Now, yes, that's true. That is true.
Can't make a limp dick get hard.
No, because that's blood flow.
Just spaghetti.
Exactly. So.
Oh, which may be why he was eating. Okay, and
we getting there. Now he did smoke weed daily, and they didn't think that was all he was smoking. They figured he was dabbling into other drugs. He had walked out of his room one time naked and sat down to have a conversation with some girls who were visiting his roommates. I mean, he was just like completely the fuck out of it. He was caught once moaning on the floor and making strange noises. He was even caught leaning out of a window and waving a gun at somebody. So this motherfucker is just...
Why is he still out?
Exactly. Now, he had a major problem with authority anyway. He didn't like people telling him what to do. He didn't like people telling him where to go. And once he was arrested for fighting these guys and a gun fell on the floor. Now, the guys...
He likes guns.
Yeah, he does. And the guys, they fought him because this was stupid on their part. They were at the apartment visiting the other roommates. They, for whatever reason, left to go get some beer. And they left one of the girls... They left a girl there with Richard. And Richard kept making advances on her and like trying to touch her and shit. And she was getting increasingly more frustrated. And when they returned with the beer, she was like, this motherfucker did this X, Y, and Z. Right. So they start arguing with him and they start fighting with him. And that's when the gun fell on the floor. They took the gun and they called the police on his ass. They were like, nah, fuck this. Now, once again,
Right move.
I was about to say, I can hear that siren clear as hell. Is my window open?
Is it?
I don't know, but it came through this mic pretty. I was like, is the ambulance in this apartment?
Nope, we're all good people.
So once again, he was arrested in Utah for a traffic violation in 1972. His father bailed him out, and he complained to his parents that he was gassed while in custody and that he had all of these unusual ailments, which he was probably tear gassed, if anything, or like pepper sprayed. He claimed that his stomach was turned around and backwards. And then he claimed his heart would stop beating often. So that's not possible. That would just mean that you were dead. Now, he did end up doing a little stint with his father as a carpenter. So he did have some employment, and his work was fine. He would sometimes work alone even. Like his father would leave him alone to work. And that could be too, because he feared his father. I mean, his father was probably the only one that can keep him under control. Now, when his father told him to get a job, he was acting like he was still sick and needed to build his strength. He was like,
I think he was playing like he was sick.
I'm sick. His father was like, nigga, if you don't get you a motherfucking job, we gonna have a problem. But then his father got sick of his ass, so he eventually moved into in with his mother. Bad fucking idea.
Completely bad idea. Norman Bates.
Yeah. At this point, he was terribly thin. His sister was kind of freaking out over how shitty he looked because he was so goddamn skinny. She thought that he looked, quote, spooky. She was like, this motherfucker looked dead. Now, his mother was sick of him, so he lived with his grandmother for a period, which I'm like,
are you serious?
Oh my God.
Like, we're just sending him to more and more like vulnerable
people. Like, it goes from the father to the mother to the grandmother.
You would think it would go the other way around. Like, okay, grandma got sick, you can't, I'm good.
Yeah.
Bye. But I mean, I guess, you know what? I understand the opposite of,
Sorry, my mic fell on my face.
You know, the dad's like, oh, I'm over it. And then mom's like, oh, it's not that bad. And the mom's like, oh, fuck this. Like, this is horrible.
Like,
and then grandma's like, I don't believe you guys are doing this to my grandbaby. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, shit.
She's like, oh, bet. This motherfucker's nuts.
So
for a while, homie was in LA driving a bus filled with disabled children.
Like a school bus?
Why is it that school bus drivers can be anything? They could be drunks, drug addicts, ex-cons,
child abusers,
predator. Like, you could literally do anything and be a school bus driver. That's crazy to me. Because it's like, those are children.
They're children.
So the health concerns became more and more of a problem. He complained constantly of stomach and heart problems and was just pissed all the time about it.
I was around kids. I'd be pissed too.
He once decided that he had gone into cardiac arrest. So he called the fire department. And when they arrived, they refused to treat him. The emergency responders told the mother to take his ass to the hospital. Now, she admitted him to the American River Hospital on December 1st, 1973. And Richard told the doctors that he had kidneys and heart that didn't work.
Okay.
His stomach hurt.
This is before WebMD.
Yeah.
Okay.
His stomach hurt and his pulmonary artery was stolen. That is what he told them. Okay. He also believed his blood had stopped flowing. So Richard arrived fucking filthy and he smelled awful. They were like, okay. He was suffering from all these delusions and they were like, we don't even know what to say. He thought his chest was numb and that he could be suffering from a hernia because he could feel the discomfort in other areas. So, of course, he knows all of this because of all the medical journals and magazines and shit that he's been reading about different organs in human beings, including heart, stomach, and lungs. This motherfucker's been doing medical research. He was
he's smart.
He is, because they were like, he was an expert. He actually knew shit that doctors
didn't know clearly. Like,
well,
besides the fact that nothing that he's talking about can really happen.
Sure, like he can't be alive and have all these issues. So they figured he was schizophrenic.
That sounds about right.
But the paranoid kind. They were like, okay. And then they thought that he had toxic psychosis from the drugs. So they recommend that he be held in a psychiatric facility for a 3-day evaluation.
That's
so a 72-hour eval. Now, he wasn't confined while he was there.
So we're just going to let him harass other people?
Yeah. And he was allowed to leave the hospital without permission.
Oh.
So his
wait.
I'll wait.
Time out. How are you under a 72-hour psych eval, but you can leave the hospital?
I'm confused.
Wait, and what evaluation are you under if you're not even on lockdown? I thought like the 72 hours you were on lockdown.
That's what I thought. I thought it was to keep you contained until they figure out what the fuck was going on with you. But
now, is it the same? I want to.
Now, the first time he left, his mother returned him. The second time, she told the hospital that Richard had been complaining about somebody bothering him at the hospital, so he needed to be kept at home. Okay, so the psychiatrist did not believe that he needed to be treated at the hospital and that he could go home. Now, he was not in danger to himself. He was discharged in December of 1973, even though he went in December 1st of 1973. He got out that same month, but he started complaining again, saying he had a, quote, heart condition and vascular disability, the result of head and back injuries. He also admitted to the doctor that he had been using LSD and marijuana, although not recently. Now, there was nothing physically wrong with him. They ordered a brain scan, electrocardiogram, but nothing. And then Chase told the doctor that his heart had stopped, so the doctor ordered some tranquilizers. By 1976, Richard was examined again and was given approval for SSI and welfare because it was impossible for him to hold down a job.
Yeah, that would be hard.
Yeah. Now, the doctor said while he was calm, he seemed neurotic. He shaved his head, and in some parts, he shaved it all the way down to the scalp and said that he had swelling in the back of his head. So to cure himself, he was going to go on a diet. That was the only way he could cure himself. Okay. Now, he was neurologically fine. All his tests were negative. They felt that he knew exactly what he was doing. 5 months later, Chase would gain weight, but he still made these insane claims of being poisoned by his mother. She was controlling his mind, and then that she was throwing his food on the floor to feed him. Now, once his sister claimed that he had tried to flavor the milk with dish soap because he thought it tastes funny.
It does taste funny.
It does. It tastes like titty milk from a cow.
I don't know if dish soap was gonna make it better, but
exactly. Now, he was starting to hold conversations with people that weren't there. That's an important part. His father was thinking that it was time for him to, move out on his own, move from his mother's house. His father would deliver groceries and pay his rent. So he started...
Just get rid of him and put him in society.
Basically, just throw him out with the rest of us and, living in a fucking complex with normal people. So...
Ooh, that's dangerous.
He started riding... He started... riding his bike to a rabbit farm to buy and butcher rabbits at home because
you could just
apparently you could just do that.
They have rabbit farms?
Apparently. Abruptly, Richard took a turn for the worse, and on an April evening in 1976, he was found by his father sitting in his apartment with his door open, pale and sick, wearing only his shorts. Chase told his father that he had purchased a bad rabbit and thought that his food had been poisoned.
So when you say only his shorts, are we talking about his underwear or?
I think just shorts. They didn't say boxer shorts, but possibly his boxers. Now if they sold those then, I don't know. I don't know what the niggas wearing in the 70s.
No.
Now he did have blood poisoning. Richard had told them that he had ate a rabbit and the rabbit had eaten battery acid that came through the walls of his stomach and into his flesh. Now here's what's interesting. Whoa. It's a lot. Now here's the interesting part. It's a lot. Here's the interesting part about this. I wanted to look this up. This rabbit thing, because this reminds me a lot of Jordan Peele's movie Us. Remember? Have you seen Us?
Yeah.
Now,
I don't remember this part though.
No, remember the tethered were living underground and they were feeding off rabbits. Because the movie is, what the movie's about. The movie is basically about this like underground scientific experiment where they were trying to connect the souls of these two people or whatever. They were basically trying to clone these people, but they were also trying to duplicate the soul. Well, they succeeded in duplicating the soul, but they didn't actually come out exactly like the people above. Right. So they abandoned the mission and they basically left these specimens, because all these people were specimens, down there to fend for themselves. But the problem was that, during that experiment as well, they had been testing these rabbits. That's how they cloned all these fucking rabbits.
I missed the rabbit part for some reason.
I mean, at the beginning of the movie is like this extreme close-up of a rabbit.
Maybe I should watch it again. I've only seen it once. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. You should check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it.
I think
I went to the show and saw it, actually.
Yeah, and I did too. I went with an ex-boyfriend, and I think after this, you'll see what I'm saying, because the whole idea of them being down there and eating rabbit flesh, them being like dirty homeless people and shit, and it also being in California, because it takes place in Santa Cruz. This is in Sacramento. So I was like, I wonder if Jordan Peele was inspired by Richard Chase.
That makes sense.
Because they were down there eating the flesh of rabbits. That's how they fed, because they didn't have access to the ground above. They didn't have access to food. So they just basically ate lab animals. Now, it was crazy. Now, his blood pressure was 0. None of this was true, obviously, because he kept saying like his blood pressure was 0. And they were like, no, you'd be dead.
That doesn't work that way.
His parents told the doctor that he abused LSD, marijuana, and narcotics. He was then transferred to the American River again, which is the hospital, for a 14-day hold instead of a 3-day evaluation in May of 1976. And his parents started a conservatorship. He was also put on a waiting list for Beverly Manor, which was a facility for mental patients.
He needed to be waiting listed?
Yeah.
No,
So, well, back then, they were booked and busy. That's why we don't really have mental, you know what I mean? Because they used to those places were fucked up.
Well, it's practice.
Yeah.
Medical practice.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, like, where do you put crazy people other than jail? And not everybody who's crazy is criminal. So, Now, Chase, quote, Chase was agitated, suspicious, and guarded. He reported that he drank rabbit blood because of his weak heart, but he did not contest the conservatorship proceedings. And when the hearings were over, he went right back to square one. His parents were appointed his conservators. The conservatorship began on June 2nd, 1976, and would automatically end a year later unless someone else or someone wanted it to be renewed. Now, it was determined that LSD use could be mistaken for schizophrenia.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the Thorazine, which they were giving him to treat the schizophrenia, would also do the same.
Wait.
Yes, it's a drug interaction.
They were giving him medication that was supposed to
treat
the schizophrenia, but it then
made him seem more schizophrenic. Yeah.
That sounds counterproductive.
A little bit. So Richard escaped from the hospital. He just ran out the door. But the next day, his father returned him. Yeah. Clearly, they don't have guards. I'm like, this motherfucker should have been chained to a bed.
I mean, I was thinking that in the 70s, they'd be in straight jackets. In little padded rooms.
Apparently not. That clearly is something that only happened in the movies. But the next day, his father returned him and he was transferred to Beverly Manor, where he got the nickname Dracula. They started calling him Dracula. Now, quote, when he talked at all, it was inevitably about killing animals. And once he announced to everyone listening that it was easy to kill and butcher rabbits because they looked like mechanical toys. And one day, Chase was found with fresh blood on his face. 2 dead birds, their necks broken, were found just outside the window of his room.
Okay.
So even after this, his parents had him released.
What?
On September 29th, 1976. She is farting like a motherfucker. It's like, she farts like a dude. Now, he moved into an apartment, and that was number 12. And he was receiving his SSI, which his mom had been cashing to handle his bills. And she would also shop for his groceries. By June, his parents decided to end the conservatorship. And at this time, he began complaining about how he had blood clots in his head. So, in 1977, he moved to D.C.
They let him move?
Hey, nigga.
First off, why are his parents not in jail? Well, I'm assuming they're probably dead.
They're probably dead at this point. But even then, it's like, what is wrong with y'all? In 1977, he moved to D.C. with $1,000 in SSI payments, and he was gone for 18 days. And he bought a Ford Ranchero while in Colorado, which is like, how did you get to Colorado? And when he returned, that's when he moved into apartment 15. Because remember, they went into apartment 12. And remember, they knocked on the door and he was like, I don't know who the fuck that is. And then they found out that he was actually in apartment 15. Now, that summer, Richard had abused a German Shepherd just because he liked to see it suffer. And apparently his mother witnessed this. His mom was done. And she would stop inviting his ass home for Christmas. She was like, motherfucker, you stay where you are.
But I mean, I feel like they're partially why he's so as bad as he is. Like, I mean, maybe if they would have left him locked up somewhere long enough to get. I
mean, he should have been locked up permanently. Nothing about his behavior shows that he should be out amongst people. Now, she would take dinner and gifts to his apartment. She wouldn't enter, though. She thought his apartment smelled like shit and it was completely too filthy. She was like, this place is disgusting. Richard's father, he would do the same. He is actually the one that bought Richard an orange ski parka.
Okay.
And Richard actually picked that out for himself. Now, his father would spend quality time with him, and he assumed that he was fine. But around the time of the murders, he noticed that he was a little nervous and impatient. And
his dad thought he was normal and fine before the.
Yeah, because they were like going on hunting and camping and shit
Oh,
like that.
where he
so
enjoyed killing
yeah,
things.
so he didn't really think anything.
Maybe
but
his
again,
dad-
it's around his father, who was originally the one that was beating his ass. So he's probably a little more subdued
Or
around
maybe
him.
his dad's crazy too.
Or facts. Now his dad asked him, he was like, yo, you want me to get you some groceries? But he's like, I don't need any. Duh. He's eating fucking animals. That visit was on January 23rd, 1978. Shortly after that, he killed Teresa. Now, the crime lab reported that human tissue was also in the Maroth bathtub, and the tissue was not from an adult. This was a concern because of baby David, and this suggested that he was not alive. So, who knows what occurred in that fucking tub? Because remember, in the first episode, we originally thought that she may have been murdered in the tub. So they tried to use the dog to track down the baby, and the dog got a hit on the red station wagon and the Ford Ranchero. Both of these cars were in impound at this point. Okay. Now the baby was in both cars. The dog got a scent on both cars. That evening, the police found some children's clothes stained with blood in the garage of the Del Paso golf course, which was an area the dogs led them to. So it was confirmed by David's mother that the clothes belonged to him, but it didn't match, actually. So they decided to drain the pond of the course, but they didn't find anything because the dog was kind of like sniffing around the pond. So they was like, fuck it, let's drain the pond. It took them like 3 days to drain this pond. They even checked Beatrice's, who is Chase's mom. They checked her property thinking that maybe he had buried the baby there because, of course, he had been burying cats there. But she was super unhelpful, and the dog didn't pick up David's scent. So she has kind of had this attitude like she wasn't really convinced that Richard committed the crimes, even though he had the victim's wallet in his possession at the time of his arrest, and he had the murder weapon.
And he's been a little off
of course.
Forever.
So this is just flat out denial. So they found these maps in Richard's apartment where he had all these areas circled in Layson County, which was 100 miles north of Sacramento and just 20 miles from Pyramid Lake in Nevada. Now, in Pyramid Lake in Nevada on August 3rd, 1977, Richard had been picked up there. He was stranded there. And when the authorities arrived, Richard had a rifle, a .22 rifle, and 2 rounds on the seat of a 1966 Ford Ranchero. Which makes me think...
I thought a .22 was like a little bit.
I thought it was a handgun. But I don't know. Does a .22 come in a rifle? Sure, I didn't look that up.
I don't know.
Now, in a white plastic bucket, they found raw liver sitting in fresh blood, which turned out to be from a cow. Chase was apprehended, but he was covered in blood. He was filthy. He was sunburned.
We have the raw liver from a cow, so I'm guessing it's cow blood.
Yeah, but he was 27 at that time, so this is a young dude. They were like, where did you get that blood from? And he was like, it's seeping from me.
And yet he was allowed to be free
roam the earth
to kill people. What
were you doing when the truck got stuck? Because his truck got stuck in the desert. Just looking around. As he did, the officer noted that the suspect had crusted blood under his armpits, in his whiskers, and even in his ears. Quote, now, Richard, where did the blood come from? I shot a deer. Where? In Colorado. When? Sometime in May. Obviously, this blood was not 3 months old. So they took him to the ranger station and they gave him a warning and arrested him on a gun violation. But he was released and went home to Sacramento. Now, on March 24th, a janitor, it's wild. On March 24th, 1978, a janitor at the Arcade Wesleyan Church found a cardboard box. And when he went to go check it out, he could smell the odor of something dead inside. He thought it was a cat or a dog, but realized that it was a human baby, a little boy. Quote, there was the body, or at least part of the body, of a small child in a box. It had been decapitated, and there was no sign of its head. The small corpse was partially mummified, no doubt from being protected or preserved somewhat by the container. Even so, it was decaying, and the stench, the sweet, sickly odor of rotting human flesh, emanated from the box. The tape on the box matched the tape that was found in Chase's apartment. Quote, the corpse was lying on his back back, right arm draped across the stomach, left arm extended. We were able to see from our new vantage point that the child's arm and legs had not been amputated, as some of us originally thought, but were simply hidden by the body. The severed baby's head, we could now see, was lying under the torso, and what seemed to be gunpowder tattooing scarred the side of the child's head. It centered on the hole in the side of the head that appeared to have been made by a small caliber weapon. Now, a green, red, and brown sweater was found in between the child's legs. He was wearing a blue diaper, like blue diaper underpants type thing, and the child was blonde. And under the boy's legs was a ring of keys. And one was a car key. And it was believed that was the key for the red station wagon that was currently an impound. So they notified Karen that David had been found, which is David's mom.
David's mom.
Yeah. Okay. So now Chase had killed 6 people. And it was believed that he was in fact the East Area killer. The lead prosecutor was Ronald W. Tochterman. He was the assistant chief deputy district attorney, and Tochterman knew that he would be convicted, and they were seeking the death penalty for sure.
They should.
Now, they believed Chase would definitely kill again, and Tochterman had to prove that Chase was sane. See, that's the thing that always sucks about this. Same thing happened with Albert Fish. It's hard to prove that these motherfuckers be sane.
I mean, with him, it's really hard, right? So, like, there's that level of, like, you know, if you're covering something up continuously, then you're clearly sane enough to know what you're doing is wrong. But this man is running around drenched in blood with the same outfit on.
Dirty,
that he's been doing,
eating raw meat,
eating
rabbits and shit.
Like, that's it's kind of creaming insanity to me. Like, I mean, there's those lucid moments clearly where, like, he's telling them, I didn't do that. But is it really because...
Or is it just because the LSD wore off a little bit? You know what I mean? Like, well,
there's that part. Are you insane
right
or are you just high?
Yeah, exactly. So to them, they're like, how the fuck are we going to prove that this man is insane? But apparently Tochterman was just really good at his fucking job, and he was able to. So, quote, this is what he said about Chase. Chase was able to appreciate the criminality of his actions and was able to conform his conduct to the confines of the law. Tochterman researched the history of blood and blood-related crimes, and he learned that at some point in human history, blood was used medicinally.
Really?
He also researched ritualistic killings and the psychology of people that ingested blood. Quote, he learned that members of many primitive tribes drank the blood of their enemies to enhance their own strength. External application was favored by others. The various rites of blood brotherhood reached into some present-day ceremonies. Native Australians, before setting out on a revenge mission, would drink blood. They also had some sprinkled on their body. He also learned that isolated individuals who claimed therapeutic justification in their appetite for blood often rationalize the true motives of their killing. Now, these could include sexual sadism combined with a perverse desire to kill, mutilate, and drink blood. And such tendencies include an aberration of erotic bloodlust known as hematodipsia.
Okay.
So he also learned that some people just experience sexual gratification from the sight of blood. So Chase was found competent enough to stand trial. And they did have a change of venue because 95% of the county knew about Richard Chase. So they were like, we need to relocate because
we're going to get a mistrial.
Yeah. Now, while in court, Chase tried to deny everything and then went on to complain about the food, asking that the psychiatrist to take the food to court to prove that they were trying to poison him in jail. He maintained that's the paranoia shit. He maintained that he didn't know he killed anyone and didn't remember. Quote, it could have been someone else. I didn't remember who they were because I was sick, poisoned by iodine or mercury. I can't stand it. I can't get away from it. I don't really remember anything about it. I was trying to get free of poison and go live with my grandmother's relatives. The car had broken down and I had no money. So I walked into someone's house and killed them. A lot of people in that neighborhood have been poisoning me for years, and now it's to the jail.
Oh, okay.
He then went on and said, I killed somebody and got caught afterwards. I don't know much about it. I've gotten involved with the Italians who are after me because I killed some of them. I killed about 6 of them. It happened over a weekend, or a week. He mentioned little pieces of strychnine. to the doc. This is what he said. This is what he mentioned. What is wrong with you? She looked at me like, bitch, I'm choking.
Wrong with you?
So he mentioned little pieces of strychnine to the doctor and said he killed because he was suffering. I couldn't stand it. So I went crazy and then to jail. Now, he had apparently felt sorry for what he did to the animals. He was genuinely sorry for that, especially a cat named Calico Kitten that he killed in 1973 and 1974. Now, Chase would also admit that all that blood drinking didn't really help anything that he had going on. But he did deny he had an urge to drink human blood, even though he said he thought it would be therapeutic.
That's weird.
Very.
Well, the fact that people actually use blood for medicinal reasons at some point in history is a little weird.
Yeah. Now, the doctor said this about Chase. Quote, my opinion is that Richard Chase is seeking relief from intolerable distress associated with his belief that he was being poisoned to death and that his belief was due to a severe chronic mental disorder. He believed that drinking blood was a possible solution to save him from certain death, but he understood that he was killing people and that it was wrong to kill people. So the doc said in his notes, Chase said, I didn't kill anybody. I didn't kill anybody. Just a few people. Anyway, I didn't kill all those people like they said I did. I just killed a few people. Well, I think it was a family over by the country club. What? Now, schizophrenia was kind of unlikely. I mean, he would shift his manner often, leading them to believe that he had a sense of right and wrong. And 2 psychiatrists found Chase sane, and he did later admit to drinking Teresa's blood, hence the ringlets, which were left behind by a blood-filled yogurt container that he had found in her garbage.
Yogurt container?
That's what that motherfucker had used.
That's...
Now, he would operate in a blackout state, not completely remember anything he did, but kind of remember enough. He denied sodomizing Evelyn and removing her clothes. He did think he could have cut her open though, and he possibly could have smeared blood on his body, but he couldn't remember.
He's like, I know I ain't fuck her because my dick don't get hard.
Exactly. So it's like, no, you did. She had a rectal cavity filled with semen. So
okay. Well, there's that.
You just didn't remember.
Well, that sucks. I wonder if that's his only time ejaculating.
Who knows?
That has to suck. You don't even
because who knows if these are the only people he killed.
Right. Good point. He just got caught.
Exactly. Now, he admitted to shooting little David. He said he thought the baby was something else. He cut off David's head and left the baby in a green bucket so he could drink more blood later. He said the blood drinking started after watching some medical shows on TV. And he started with animals first and then escalated to humans. It all started because this motherfucker couldn't hold a fucking erection.
All because he couldn't hold an erection. Weren't we just kind of talking about men not being able to?
Yes.
And this, yep.
Now, Tochterman was looking for murder in the first degree, which would mean that he would have to prove premeditation. The rubber gloves, the removal of Teresa's body to get her out of sight. There were no frenzied cuts. They were very purposeful. He washed his hands. He washed the knife and even placed it back in the rack in the kitchen.
I mean, does that really prove premeditation though?
It does, because
the gloves maybe, but outside of that, it still could be a.
He was removing Teresa's body. If he was nuts, he would have just left her there.
Well, right. So that doesn't. I mean that proves he's not insane, but it doesn't prove premeditation. I just randomly decided to kill this person today. I didn't leave my house necessarily going to kill Susan.
Well, they were saying that he brought the gloves.
Okay, I get it. Everything he did was in preparation to kill somebody.
Maybe not her, maybe not in that way, but he knew that the goal was to kill somebody and to fucking drink their blood
and then hide it.
Now, his other thing was, he left out the back door. You know what I mean? He was just trying to not get away with it in a way, even though he left evidence everywhere. But then according to Chase, he also was planning on just going back home and just watching about it on the news. So, quote, Mr. Chase exhibited deliberate caution in moving the bodies of Meredith and young Jason out of view from the front picture window to the bedroom. Evelyn Maroth was shot once in the head. She was stripped naked. Mr. Chase cut open her abdomen with 2 distinct cross cuts. He carefully attacked particular internal organs. The liver was cut, the tissue supporting the abdomen were torn, and the back of the abdomen was cut. No incidental damage to the intestines were inflicted. Some of Mrs. Maroth's clothes were found in the bathroom. There was bloody water in the bathroom. Mrs. Maroth had a knife wound in the rectal area, 2 cuts from the anal area and the rectal wall, and 6 stab marks in the uterine wall. The knife was apparently thrust back and forth in the wound, which means
that's definitely sexual.
He definitely was acting like it was
his penis. Like he was like, and she was already dead. So like,
you're moving a knife in and out of her.
Oh yeah, that's some sexual.
Mr. Chase sodomized Mrs. Maroth's body, achieving orgasm. Mr. Chase carefully enucleated, Mrs. Maroth's right eye. This involved precise, careful cutting. Mr. Chase shot David Ferreira in the head in his crib. He opened up the back of David's skull with a knife, and part of the baby's brain was found in the bathtub. He had the presence of mind and self-control to stop his activities and effect a getaway undetected. He had the presence of mind to take Mr. Meredith's car rather than try to get his own vehicle, which was close by. Mr. Chase got back to his apartment, got the baby's body inside without being seen. He got rid of Mr. Meredith's car, leaving it locked in park in the parking lot of the Sandpiper Apartments, the west boundary of which bordered on the east boundary of Mr. Chase's apartment complex. He obviously was aware he had to move fast to cover his tracks. With people checking for the Maroths, the crimes would soon be discovered. He had to get his ranchero out of the area. He returned to the country club center and got his car. It was gone by 12:15 that day. Mr. Chase further mutilated David Ferreira's body at his apartment. More pieces of the brain were found there. When eventually found, the body showed a gunshot wound to the head and a stab and incised wound to the back of the skull.
How old was this baby?
2.
That's crazy.
The largest opening was 2 1/2 inches long. There was a gaping wound to the chest and abdomen. Ribs 3 through 10 were broken. The buttocks had been stabbed. There was a cutting wound from the rectum to the sacrum. The body was decapitated. Mr. Chase understood he had to dispose of the body and evidence which would incriminate him. He had obtained 2 large empty cardboard boxes. He put the baby's clothes, and the keys to Mr. Meredith's car in one box. He took that box to a location about 3/4 mile north of his apartment, where he dumped it over the fence, enclosing a small little used area between the back of the church office and the rear of the market. It was found there with the baby's badly decomposed and partially mummified body on March 24th, 1978.
Definitely can't really plead insanity when you went through those extremes to get rid of things.
Now, Chase showed no emotion and actually looked kind of bored. The defense tried to get second-degree murder, but no go. They knew Chase was nuts. Crazy. They knew he was a sexual sadist. They knew he was a cannibal. They knew he was a necrophiliac, but he knew that he was he knew what he was doing, even still. And the jury was predominantly women. It was 8 women and 4 men. So he was fucked. And on May 8th, after 4 hours of deliberations and a 4-month trial, 1 year after the death of Ambrose Griffin, he was found guilty of murder in the first degree of all 6 victims. Then the jury found him legally sane during the penalty phase. Quote, "I beg for another chance to survive. I hope to make compensation for the family. I am a good person, although weak in heart and mind." Chase was sentenced to the gas. Chase was sentenced to the gas chamber in San Quentin Penitentiary. He was feared in prison, and many of the inmates tried to get him to kill himself because none of them wanted to get close enough to kill him. They were like, "This nigga is nasty."
That makes sense too.
Richard was still really crazy, and apparently during an interview talked about Nazis and UFOs and his fear of them. He also pulled out a handful of macaroni from his pants pocket that he had been hoarding and handed it to the person that was interviewing him because he thought they were trying to kill him with it.
See, little things like that make me go,
he nuts.
He kind of really is nuts,
but
though.
We all know it's because of drugs.
But I mean, he hasn't been on, well, I mean, it doesn't mean they don't have a long It doesn't mean he wasn't doing drugs in jail either.
Period. So then on December 26, 1980, a guard doing cell checks found Chase lying in the bed, not breathing. He committed suicide by overdose using the antidepressants prescribed to him while he was in jail. He had been hoarding them for 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so like, let's talk though. Like, the system failed this man.
Sure.
A long
With his
time
parents,
ago. Like, and then they failed him again. Like, I mean, not that anybody's sad that he killed himself, but why are you allowed to? I just felt like that's something. Aren't you supposed to like lift your tongue up or something when they give you medication, make sure it went down? I don't know. Like, how are you hoarding it?
Who knows? Because I do feel like in jail, the guards, the medical staff, and they get to a point where when they learn of your crimes, they don't give a fuck if you live or die anyway. They're like, who give a fuck if this nigga's hoarding?
No, he probably shouldn't be. And
they like, if he kill himself, he kill himself. Mind you, the doxapen that he had been taking, he had taken more than 36 times the limit and 12 times the toxic level.
So how long were you hoarding that medication?
2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks. Quote, 2 pages contain some sort of graph, the squares filled with some sort of cryptographic code. The other 2 pages contain the strangest sort of suicide note. It was a rambling message in which the inmate warned that he might take some pills and that his heart might stop beating as a result. And according to the psychiatrist, quote, his crimes were committed around the Christmas holidays 3 years ago. There might well have been an anniversary phenomenon involved in the timing of his suicide.
That makes sense.
Richard Chase died exactly 1 day short of 3 years after the Marath killings. So,
not that I feel bad for him, but
that is the Vampire of Sacramento.
Well, that was gnarly.
That was gnarly. I'm exhausted after that.
That was intense. Like the first episode, the first part,
a little more playful.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting
it to be so fucked up.
Yeah. I'm not that drunk and yet I'm lost for words.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like I kind of, even when I was researching, I was like, damn, like this is probably because of the LSD. Like, okay, let's say hypothetically he had a mental disorder from the onset.
Oh, right.
Because he was doing this shit from the age of 10. He was
so he
animals.
wasn't clearly like...
He wasn't okay. But I do feel like LSD kind of...
I mean, it fucked him up some more. Like, he already had some untreated mental illness going on. And that's what I'm saying. The systems just failed him forever, like, starting with his parents. Like, at 10, you can't just ignore things like your kids killing cats. No. Like, that's not...
No. And because that's not one of those boys would be boys type of things.
No.
And more importantly, like, you know...
And then to put him in his own... in an apartment and pay his bills and kind of just ignore...
just kind of like... just like placate the situation and try to like... just let him do his thing. You know what I mean? It's like he can't just do his thing because his thing is going to be fucked up. And you knew that. You knew that. I mean, he had issues from his teens. He had issues with his roommates. He had fucking nailed himself into his closet and said that, you know,
there were people coming out of from after. Like,
come on, like there, you know what I mean? Like there was just so much going on there. And part of me at the very beginning, when I was like skimming over it, like the summary, I was like, it looks like his parent at least tried. It was better than Lori Dan's parents.
Yeah, they just got
like whatever. If the bitch dies, she dies. They kind of had that issue. That except her father. Her father kind of like tried, but he really didn't at the same time. But at least his parents were sending him to the hospital. They did fight for the conservatorship. They were trying to get him the help that he needed.
But it makes me wonder, were they doing it for financial reasons, right? So like, were they gaining anything from, you know, having him on a conservatorship and having his SSI? Like, were they keeping part of that money? Like, where was the, like, cause I don't know. I don't have kids, but like, I couldn't imagine having a child whose house I had to bring dinner to, but I wouldn't even step into your house as a grown person. No. Like, I get one thing, like, okay, my kid has, you know, some sort of issue that causes them to need some assistance. Mm-hmm. But like, then I would want to come in your house. Like, but I mean, I also wouldn't let my child, in my mind, live in a house that I wouldn't walk into.
No. And even so, like, it stinks. And I think, I will say this, just to offer something to extend some grace to his parents. I don't know what they could have really done other than just have him hospitalized too. Because I do feel like he was, in some instances, especially in his relationship with his father, he would kind of pretend like he was kind of okay. But I wonder if it was fear. Because who really knows what the fuck Richard was saying to his parents? He could have been threatening to kill him. He could have been threatening all types of shit. So to me, it's kind of hard to just say. I mean, I personally, if it were me, I would have just threw his ass in the hospital.
Yeah, I'd have locked you up a long time ago.
I've been like, medicate him, give him a fucking lobotomy. I don't give a fuck what you do.
I mean, and they were probably still doing lobotomies in the 70s.
Yeah, I was like, give him something. He needs something. But it's also, I don't know how you can undo LSD abuse.
You can't. I had my stepmom has a cousin that got dosed with LSD at a party and completely lost it. He's never been normal again. Like he was like, I didn't know him before he lost it, but like he got dosed at a party and never went back to the same. And now, I don't know where he's at these days. If he's even alive now, I should ask about him. But like he used to come like knocking on the door, like roaming the streets, like, you know, and Pearl would let him in and, you know, feed him. And, you know, we would have conversation with him until he was ready to go. I mean, he was
functioning,
lucid.
Yeah.
You know, his conversation didn't always necessarily make sense. I mean, he didn't seem dangerous.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wonder.
Yeah.
You know,
I just think that like by the time Chase died, he was 30. There had been at least 15 years of
20.
Crazy. Yeah, 20 for sure. 20 years of crazy ass behavior.
Yeah.
From this particular individual, from the constant visits to the hospital to the LSD thing that his parents knew about.
Yeah.
To the animals, the getting him an apartment, not being able to go into the apartment because of smell. He's dirty. Everybody who fucking saw this guy said he was filthy.
Yeah.
And said that he stank because he didn't bathe. You get to a point where you're buying your son groceries and then all of a sudden you're not buying him groceries and he's covered in blood. Concerned much?
Just a little bit, right? That's why I'm like, the system failed him.
The system failed him,
but
sure.
But I also feel like the system fails a lot of people's mental illnesses.
Sure.
That's why we have so many homeless people in certain places.
For sure. I feel like with drugs, because it's kind of like you don't just take a person who has an irreversible LSD problem to the yard and shoot them in the head.
Nope. But
so what do you do?
I don't know. Because I think a lot of times though, there are people that have mental illnesses that end up doing drugs. Yeah, so like sure. what were they doing before they started doing those drugs?
I can see Richard sitting with some friends and some friends telling his friends about how his dick can't get hard. And then they're like, you know what could help?
Try some coke.
Or because, think about it. Like, you know, we've all kind of tried some things in our lives. And, you know, we probably all kind of had a little sex while on them.
And usually something that feels better.
And you're like, ooh, this is fun. And he probably had, it's again, hippie era.
Yeah.
He probably had a friend who was just like,
you should try
this.
This
will change your life.
Have you ever heard that story about the dude? You know, if you put like coke on like the tip of your penis, supposedly like it keeps it hard for
I can see that. Yeah.
An extremely long time. Well, your dick shouldn't stay hard for too long.
No.
Because it will fall the fuck off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But you know, somebody told him like, hey, like, throw some on the tip of your dick, because technically when you do coke constant, not that I know firsthand, I've never done coke.
Me neither.
I know the recipe to crack and it's all the same to me.
Okay.
But like, suppose when you do coke, it makes you impotent. Like it can fuck with your
coke dick.
Yeah, so to counteract it, put some on the tip of your dick while you're doing it, almost like give your dick a snort.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's interesting.
And the story was like, I forgot when I read it, but like
it fell off
basically. They had to like cut it off. I don't think it really fell off, but he had to go to the doctor because like there was just too much blood flow, I guess. And
it was engorged.
Yep. So I had to go.
That's wild.
I was like, that sucks. You just basically became never mind. I won't say that. That's not what I was gonna say, but we're not gonna.
But no, like, yeah, that's wild. I didn't know that because I mean, obviously you see things like, you know, people snorting coke off somebody's ass or, you know, doing some shit like that. Like, I've never done coke, but I have friends that have, and I don't know anybody who doesn't do it traditionally, like just through the nose. You know what I mean? Like, but. I mean, I know people,
people that sprinkled it on their weed, but like,
yeah, of course, yeah, or like
snort it.
Yeah, people who snort it. Like, I just don't really know of anybody being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make my dick snort coke." Like, that's crazy.
It's not normal, and
they
probably read that same story that I read.
That's wild. That's why I ain't never heard. I got to look that up. So,
that was.
On that note,
don't put coke on your dick.
Don't put coke on your dick hole. That's a bad idea. Because also people put it in their butt.
Really?
People, if I'm not mistaken, people smoke. I mean, people smoke. People put like cocaine in their asshole.
Well, you know, if like I've seen,
there's a lot of vessels back there.
There are. So like I know that who was that or what was it? I don't know, something they couldn't get drunk or they wanted to get drunker, so they started like pouring liquor up their ass.
What the fuck?
I think that was on like
Strange
intervention.
Addiction? Oh, okay. Because I was about to say, I have seen the one with the couple that like is addicted to coffee enemas.
I've heard that's really good for you though, actually. I don't know how true that is.
They thought so too.
I'm like okay, maybe,
it's like,
maybe they're doing it wrong, but I think there's like you go to the doctor and get a coffee enema.
I mean, I'm sure
there's some sort of place. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you can go to a doctor.
Because they were doing that shit multiple times.
I don't know if you go to a doctor or if it's some center.
It's a crazy energy boost. But to me, I'm just like.
I thought it was like because coffee's a laxative in theory. So I thought maybe it was.
Yeah, I can see that. But it also dehydrates. So I don't know why that would be 100% true. I think it's an energy thing. Because technically, I mean, you take anything up the ass, there's so like it's just raw vessels back there.
Yeah, you're going straight
there's
to the
no system. There's no system for it to really travel through. It just goes straight out. It probably it does, but it's an intense high first.
No, I mean,
and this couple was on there, and they just kept doing all these coffee enemas. They just kept doing them, and I'm like, I'm just not interested in putting coffee up my ass.
I'm good.
I tell you what, eating ass would taste like
better, I guess.
The best part of waking up. Like Folgers in your cup.
Yep. Especially, you know, a little vanilla bean.
Okay. You do a little French vanilla up the rectum.
Might smell better up there.
Up the derriere. So, oh my God, I hope you enjoyed the first episode. This was fucked up. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. And we're recording this on Halloween.
Spooky. Subscribe. I don't have anything for you to subscribe to, but you could definitely follow my podcast at I Swear to Drunk on Instagram. You can follow me at Lavender and Bordeaux. You can also follow me on TikTok, which is where I am as Sting like a BB, as in B Arthur, not the bzz B. And then Arrogantly Humble is ye old Dustin.
Me.
So yeah, follow us there if that's your thing. If you didn't hate this episode, and also feel free to send me messages and be like, And
if you're looking, you want to contribute to the drink fund, figure out
for sure. They don't have to figure it out because I have a support link now on my on my show notes. So if you feel like supporting the show,
buy a bottle and she'll curate a cocktail for you.
Yes, and get drunk. So yeah, if you feel like dropping like $2-3, we paying handling now. No, I'm just joking. No. That's fucked up. That's not funny. That ain't funny. So yeah,
we can afford our own liquor.
Yeah, I'm good. Don't do that. But the support button is a new thing for my host, so I put it on that bitch. Okay,
let's go.
So yeah, follow us at all those platforms. I'm ridiculous on mine for sure. You can comment or send me a message. I don't mind. I don't hate it. Maybe I'll respond. Maybe I won't.
You'll never know what you'll get on mine.
Well, exactly. But I want to thank you all again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank Dustin. And last season was such a learning experience. And obviously,
I'm excited for season 2.
I know I'm excited for season 2 too. And hopefully we'll have Kira back.
Kira back next week?
Yeah, well, hopefully we can see where she is mentally. And then we got to have Sal back. And then I got a couple other people that want to pop on the potty.
And then me, you, Sal, and Kira need to do an episode.
I don't got all the tech for that. We ain't built for all of that. And then, eventually we'll shift on over to the old vid whenever I actually have time to get that going. We'll get some video going. So, but thanks again, guys. And I'll see you all next episode. And don't forget, okay, it's every other Thursday. So don't be like next Thursday being like, bitch,
right,
what?
next Thursday.
So it won't be next Thursday. It'll be following Thursday. We're not going back to weekly because that was stressful as fuck.
That's a lot.
That's stressful as fuck when you're doing it by
jobs.
yourself. Yeah, I got to go back to the job that pays me. You heard me? So, all right, y'all take care.
Bye.
Peace.